Hi, I'm Mike De Greasley and welcome to Cracking CGI. Well, in this series of short tutorials we'll be looking at the many different ways in which we can begin applying materials to our model of the Messerschmitt 109E. Okay, so rather than wasting any time, let's get cracking. Well, let's begin by having a basic introduction to our material editors. Now, we can access the material editor via the icon here. However, we do have two material editors, the compact material editor and the slate material editor. And if you notice, we've got a little tab down here in the bottom right hand corner, and that generally indicates that there is other options available within here. So let's left click with the mouse and we can see that we've got two. Let's have a look at this one, and there you go. That's your compact material editor. Let's just close that down for a moment. Left click again and let's take a look at this one. That's your slate material editor. Well, we're going to start with the compact material editor. So there, let's select the top one, and there we are. Now we can also access this by hitting the hotkey, which is M on the keyboard. Now, in general, the slate interface is supposed to be more versatile when you're actually designing material, and the compact interface is more convenient when you need to simply apply a material once it's already been designed. But not to worry, because I think over the next few sessions we'll explore both of them. Well, at first sight, the material editor can look rather daunting. So let's get stuck into this. Right, we're going to begin with our sample slots, or as I call them, swatches. Now, as you can see, we've got orbs or spheres. If we pop over here to this one, we can actually select our sample type. Now, we've got a sphere at the moment, but we could have it as a cylinder, or we could have it as a cube, a box. I prefer to work with the spheres, so let's remain with that one. Now, in order to get a better view of these, we could simply double click with our left mouse key and we can bring up a larger version of this slot. Well, before we start looking at introducing some materials to this swatch, let's have a look at some of these icons down here. We've got this one, backlight. At the moment it's active, but if we deselect it, you can see here that the backlighting that was there has now disappeared. Let's put it back on. Actually, I've never switched it off before. That was an experience. There's also the background. Now, if we select the background, you can see that we now have a checkered board of various colours. In all honesty, I only ever use this if I'm looking at creating glass or something that has a transparency. We can check this out by going down to our opacity here, and let's just drag that down a little bit. There we go. You can actually see through it, and that's where I use it for. Okay, let's ramp that back up to 100, and I'm going to switch the background off. Now, you can actually introduce an image to the background if you wish. I've never done that yet though. Okay, well, this one here is looking at UV tiles. Now, at the moment we don't have any material selected, so that won't make any difference. Now, we do have the video color check and the make preview. This is two items which are not available in the slate editor, and quite frankly we're not going to be using those at all, so let's just ignore them. Now, down here we do have options. Let's check that one, and here we can see that we have a material editor options dialog box. Okay, so we could make manual updates. Now, all that means is, right, it's on auto at the moment. Any changes I make are automatic. We could override that, so any changes would have to be manually done. Top light. Now we can change the top light here, and that's this light here, and the backlight is this lighting down here. Let's just take a quick preview. Okay, I'd like the top light to be, well, brownish, sort of. I can say OK on that, and then go apply. And as we can see, it's changed our coloration there. Let's put that back to white. Press OK and say apply. Now the only thing I really do use this for is the slots. At the moment, if we have a look at our slots, we've got it, this radio button down here, selected at 6 by 4. That means we have 6 columns by 4 rows. We could of course reduce that to 5 by 3, press apply. In fact, I think on this we have to press OK as well. And there we go. We've got 5 columns and 3 rows. Let's pop back into options, and I prefer the 6 before, and press OK. Now there are a few ways that we can acquire materials. One way is get material. Okay, let's look at that, and we have our material map browser, and here it's got standard. Now standard actually also relates to this button down here. It says standard, so that's another way that we can access it by clicking that, and it brings up standard. The materials that we're looking for are the 3ds Max materials, map for materials there, and these are standard. They come with 3ds Max. Now here we are. They look a bit small. Can't actually see them. Okay, well if we pop up here, right click with our mouse, display material library as, and I'm going to put large icons. Now that's better. We can begin to see what we have. Okay, well we've got various things for backgrounds. We've got balloons, bricks, concrete, an eyeball that should see you through the week. What else? Materials, foliage, ground, quite a few things. Let's look for something interesting. Yep, we'll go for metal rust. Well, to select it, simply double click on the left mouse key. There we go, and as you can see, it's in our bigger swatch here, so we can see what's happening. Now, as it is one of 3ds Max's resident materials, it does come with its own preset or predefined parameters. Here we can see that it's blin, or it's set out as blin. Here in the diffuse we can see an M in the box which is to the right of it, and that says it's map to Medrus 3 JPEG, likewise with the specular, and we can see that the specular levels have some settings as well, along with glossiness. But that doesn't mean that we can't modify these to our own specifications, or even choose different shaders. At the moment it's set at blin. Now blin is the default shader, and it's generally used for rounder, sort of softer highlights than the Phong shader. But what about anisotropic? Let's take a look at that. Now we could see a slight change there, and the anisotropic is actually for surfaces with elliptical, as we say, anisotropic highlights, and these highlights are good for, well, they're good when it comes to modelling hair, glass, or even brushed metal. We've also got metal. Yes, as it suggests, it's generally for metallic surfaces. We've got the multi-layer, and that's for surfaces with more complex highlights than the anisotropic. There's the Oranea Blin. Say that when you're half cut. And that can be used for matte surfaces such as fabrics and, well, even terracotta. Then we've got Phong, and that's for surfaces with sort of strong circular highlights. Then Strauss for metallic and non-metallic surfaces, and then of course there is the translucent shader. Now if I actually select this, it's going to rearrange or change some of the preset parameters for the rest of it, so I'm not going to select it, but it is similar to blend shading, and the translucent shader also lets you specify the translucency. Now it is quite good when it actually comes to looking at light which scatters as it passes through the material. Okay, so that's the basic shaders. I'm coming to the conclusion that a tutorial session just wouldn't be the same without the inconvenience of a screen freeze. Okay, moving on. Let's have a look at these boxes around here: wire, two-sided, face map and faceted. In all honesty, I've never used them yet, but there's always a first time for everything. Let's take a look at wire. Now when we apply the tick to the wire box, what it does is actually show us a wireframe, or it's put into wireframe mode. Now if this was applied to our geometry, we can actually render it out as a wireframe. So what about two-sided? Well, as we can see at the moment, the only thing we can see is the front of that piece of geometry. So if we put two-sided on, we can now see the back section as well. So it's put our material on both sides of our geometry. What about face map? Well, a little bit more complex is this, because it actually applies the material to the faces of the geometry. Now if the material is mapped, then it doesn't really require any mapping coordinates, because the map is automatically applied to each facet of the object. I know, a little bit complex. As I say, I've never used them, but that's the explanation. What about faceted? Well, slight changes there, and basically what it does when it comes to rendering, it renders each face of a surface as if that face were flat. Okay, well, that's the explanation. And there we go. Mindful of the time, I think we'll continue this in the next session. I'll catch you later.